So we're on Zoom, obviously. Unfortunately, I cannot make the commute. And so I just wanted to talk for a moment about how we can make this really work for us. I know we got used to Zoom, but I also feel like there's just like if we were in a meeting together, we should just have a quick chat about Zoom as a format. Um, I know that not everybody loves breakout rooms, but I do find them to be in a group as large as this, the depth of conversation is going to happen in a breakout room. So I am going to try and use them, and I ask that you focus on the questions or the task at hand, and then also just ensure in the limited time that we have available that everybody's voice is heard. So if you could help me with that in your breakout rooms, that would be amazing. We are going to be posting the recording, which will have the slides. So don't feel the need to write notes other than ones that you will find helpful. And then there will be resources and readings depending on how we decide to move forward and which topics come up for you. Um, there might be some pre-reading, and there will for sure be other resources that will be posted to a portal that Michelle will give you access to. So everything will go up and you will have access to it. And then I'm always available for dialogue. I will always stay online for a little bit after the session ends. And then at the end of the session, I will give you my email. And so if there's something I said or a resource I referenced and you want to talk about it or you would like to receive it, if I have it, I can just email that to you. Okay, does that make sense? Or we're good with that? Okay. So one of the things I find very helpful is, and use a lot, is both quotes and poems in my leadership work as a reflective tool, as a way to help myself think bigger and outside of the constraints of my work, my daily work. And we will use both quotes and poetry as we work together. So let's start with this one. It's from The Little Prince. And it says this: if you want to build a ship, don't drum up people to collect wood, and don't assign them tasks and work. Rather, teach them to long for the endless immensity of the sea. I'm wondering what you think this quote is telling us about our work as leaders in childcare, leaders anywhere. What do you think the application to this is? And again, be brave and unmute or share in the chat. Yeah, teach them to love what they're doing. Inspiration is vital. Yes. On a good day, the rest will fall into place. Igniting a passion will carry everyone further. Joy and yearning leads to amazing response and passion. So as leaders, what is how do we do this? What is the role we play? Teach your staff or show them to reveal the mind and discoveries of the child. Allow people space to discover their own preferences. I think whilst this quote on the face of it is exactly what you said, that's we want people to do the work because they believe in the work, to do the work because it matters to them, to their family, whatever that is. I don't think this is an easy thing to do. I think that we often find leaders and managers or who quite quickly become the manager of lists and checklists and shift duties and things that have to be done. And it's hard to hold on to this bigger picture, this longing to be the adults that children need, to really stay focused on that deeper meaning that we have to assume most early childhood educators came to the field with. And so I find this very confronting sometimes because I can sometimes get into the weeds of details and things that need to get done and licensing and funding and all those other things. But we have to hold that alongside this need to inspire and keep folks focused on the important things and not to be completely diverted by the things that are important but shouldn't consume our days. Does anybody have anything else to add to that? Does that resonate with any of you? Do you sometimes feel like we've lost that great vision and sometimes we get in the weeds with all the other stuff that we have to do? Yeah. All right. Tonight, because we hadn't really had an opportunity yet to hear from you about what are the top things, although Michelle's been very good about letting me in on that. I'm going to have a bit of a conversation about vision and values. And so I hope this is helpful to you. It feels to me like a lot of input this session, but I there will be a breakout room and we will have some conversation shortly. So I wanted to start by talking about vision, and this is a great quote. A clear vision backed by definite plans gives you a tremendous feeling of confidence and personal power. And then this other quote, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with this book, From Teaching to Thinking, by Ann Pellow and Margie Carter. If you don't know it, as you can see, I have used it, I would say, every single week for the 5 years that it's been on my desk, and I highly commend it to you. And Ann Pellow and Margie Carter are good friends of mine, and they changed the way I think about my work. So if you don't have this book, I'm not getting, I don't have a code or anything, but I will tell you it's really amazing. But Anne says this about vision. When we make systems focused decisions based on values that express our vision, we stay tuned to the pedagogical process of teaching and learning rather than to regulations and assessment. That links right back to the quote we were just talking about. What is at the heart of what we want folks to be working on? We create an integrated and integrating culture of inquiry in which curiosity and conversation, research and reflection saturate our days and seep into all aspects of our program. Vision is the big umbrella under which the organization works. It's both aspirational and a safety net. It gives everyone something to strive towards and keeps the work we do safe if we stay within its boundaries. It is empowering and builds cohesion throughout the organization. We all know what we're here to do, and it's not ambiguous or open to interpretation. It has been both the anchor and the engine in our organization. When we began the process of trying to come up with a vision, one statement that says all of the things that we wanted to say, the questions that we wrestled with the help of Anne Pellow, were what kind of people do we want to be? And what kind of world do we want to live in? And when I first heard those questions, I was actually fairly annoyed because I was like, how does this help me, figure out the day to day with our organization? I need a vision statement. I need something that I can hang on to. And but as I sat with those questions, what kind of people do we want to be, and what kind of world do we want to live in? Um, I realized that it helps us to clarify and distill exactly what it is we are here to do as an organization. So, finding our vision and values was a deep dive into the core of who we were, who we aspired to be as a community, and what it was going to take to get there. We engaged everyone in a year-long conversation on what our vision and values could be. From our board of directors, all of our educators, the families, the children, our janitors, our community partners, everybody who was attached to us in any way. And we wrote and rewrote and refined until we created a statement that we could all live into. Every single person on our teams can say the vision statement without a second thought. And we reference it all the time. It's on our documents, our business cards. We've even made stickers and put them on the wall in our centers. Our vision statement is in our DNA. It is who we are. And we landed on this statement: changing the world by honoring childhood. And I can ask any educator and they can tell me that. But what they know is that they come to work every day, not to carry wood and fulfill tasks. They come to work to change the world by honoring childhood. And I, for us, my biggest regret is that it it took me so long to understand the power of a vision statement for educators to hang on to, for me to hang on to, for everyone to understand who we are as an organization. If you don't yet have a vision statement, Anne offers these questions to help you figure out how to get there. What is the nature of the community that you hope to be? What is the role of educators in children's learning? What do children want to learn? What sort of teaching and learning will be best served when we believe to be the purpose of education? This is in chapter 4 of From Teaching to Thinking. Vision is a declaration of what we care about and who we strive to be. Is that making sense? Do most of you have a vision for your programs? Some of you will be in multi-services maybe where the vision is of a greater organization, but you can always make a vision for your own program for each, you can do some work with your own teams to come up with a vision. So after you have a vision, then it's time to talk about values. Values are not words or concepts. Values are pathways for action. So our values flowed from our vision statement. 5 strong statements that guide every decision we make. We continually and constantly ask ourselves, how does this decision align with our values? From the budget to hiring decisions, to what art that we offer to children, to how we engage with families, and literally everything in between. It's been a very steadying anchor for us and has kept us true to the answer to the question of what kind of people we want to be and what kind of world we want to live in. And when COVID hit, it helped to steer us through the storm because we were able to continue to be exactly who we were, even when everything around us was changing. In recent years, at the prompting of our educators who have a strong voice in our organization, we felt the need to add 3 new statements to the original 5. As our work had evolved and we had learned more things, we added one that spoke to the inclusivity of LGBTQ2S perspectives, one that speaks to our commitment to act on the climate emergency that is facing the world. And our final one was to do work around reconciliation around Indigenous people. And so this just serves to illustrate the point that our work should be evolving and dynamic, right? It should be in response to what is happening in our world and what is happening for our educators and with our educators. I really think if nothing has changed in our practice in the last 3 to 5 years, then we have to ask ourselves some questions. So if you have a vision, then your values should line up with them. I learned this quote um, at a conference that values are like garlic. Everyone should know you have them, which just kind of resonated with me. But they guide every decision we make, big and small. And we call this values-based decision making. From budget allocations to with coworkers and parents, we can use our values to guide us. And as I said, we ask, does this align? Does this thing I'm going to say or do align with our values? And then you act in alignment with your values. Your personal values, and this applies to your educators, should align with the organizational values, or there will be a disconnect that leads to discontent for both parties. This alignment of values is tricky for leaders and administrators, especially in difficult recruitment climates. I don't know what it's like in the Kootenays, but it's not great at the coast. And I have overlooked this misalignment in desperation to fill a position. And I can attest to the truth that eventually the discontent starts. And unless there is a lot of room for growth and grace on both parties, it usually ends not only with the educator or manager leaving, either by choice or not, but there is usually a trail of destruction in the conflict that has happened between colleagues and sometimes even with families. It's difficult in an interview to figure out if someone is well aligned with your values, but there are ways that we have found that help us get more quickly to the conversation on values in an interview so that people don't join our organization expecting us to be something that we are not. And so we try and deal with the potential for misalignment down the line by dealing with it up front. Does that make sense? I'm happy to chat to folks about how we do that for sure. Awesome. I'm seeing some
It
comments.
makes sense, and I'd love to hear more about how you do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we're going to probably end up doing a whole session on HR and like recruitment and retention, or I'm sure that I'm waiting to hear what it is that's really on your minds, but for sure we can absolutely have a conversation about that. Okay. I hear you. Um, so after you get vision and values, then I learned about this from the BC Early Learning Framework, this notion of pedagogical choices. Um, Pedagogical choices being everything educators choose to do with children with the environment, materials, traditions, and routines is a pedagogical choice. I'm just reading a comment there. In your place of work or where any of us are working in childcare, there are literally hundreds of pedagogical choices that have to be made every day. And they should be pointing in the direction of our values and our vision. Um, Educators actually, in my experience, find this notion of pedagogical choices quite helpful because it's very practical, because it shows up and it shows up your values in all of these small decisions. How you set up your classroom each day, how you celebrate events, what traditions you make and keep, what art materials you choose or choose not to use, the books you buy, the routines you have. Every choice we all make every day in our childcare workplaces is a pedagogical choice, and they all have impacts. So if you think about the last shift or a moment when you offered something to the children, we can ask early childhood educators and ourselves to assess the choices that we made. And they will need to be in alignment with the values that your organization holds. And so pedagogical choices can be a helpful roadmap for early childhood educators, and they can also be a helpful accountability tool for leaders when you're talking about um, guiding and caring for the educators that you work with. So I'm going to try and put this all together for us and talk about how pedagogical choices and values show up in a very practical manner. So bear with me. If your organization, like mine, is values child-led, process-oriented art that allows children to explore the language of art through various offerings of materials, and you also believe that sometimes children need coaching on the tools, the art, the use of tools of art so that they can show us their competence. That art is a place we allow children freedom of expression and that they see us delight in their creativity, curiosity, and competence. That our art areas are set up for children to use and for cleanup to be done with minimal fuss. That the art studios and spaces invite children in and offer them beautifully arranged materials of many kinds to explore. So if we agree that this is what the values are about art, which in our organization we do, then it's going to be very clear that certain things cannot and will not be offered because they go against those values. So in our organization, there are 3 no-goes in this area. The first is not putting out any prescribed offerings like coloring pages, teacher-drawn art, crafts that require a specific outcome, or any art where a teacher example is offered. Why? Because this does not serve the children and their creative process. Seeing a teacher do your art or be given a prescribed coloring book sends the message that the child is not competent or creative and that there is a standard or expectation they have to perform to. That is outside of our values. It cannot happen. The second no-go is not having a studio space that is organized, accessible, and well-resourced. That means also that we don't gatekeep the materials for teacher comfort. That I can tell you that having clay is a huge ask for early childhood educators. It's messy, it's complicated, it has to be stored correctly. There's all these things that make clay a difficult thing to offer. But in the conversations we have with educators, we help them understand that they're gatekeeping for their own comfort and not for the children's exploration. And when we shift that lens and we remember what our values and vision are, then it's easier to help them step into some of those more tricky offerings. The third no-go is not having educators that lack attentiveness, engagement, enthusiasm, and effort. That is not just throwing some things on the table because your duty today is art. That's not just grabbing the first thing that's on the top and throwing it on the table. That's not just offering pencil crayons and crayons today because you're tired. This is not putting things out and walking away. This is being engaged with children in their creative process. So if we know what we do value and what we want to see, then it is easy to identify what must not happen. And in this way, then, the next layer is that practices align with values. Pedagogical choices are made to keep our practices aligned with our values. Often, the way that this breaks down on a team or in a classroom is when we let little things slip, when we turn a blind eye to something that doesn't align with our values, and when we say nothing and thus let ourselves fall short of the educator that we wanted to be in that moment. There needs to be communication, and I'm sure this is another whole topic we should be talking about, communication, to be able to say to each other when we see each other falling short of our values. We need to be able to have agreements about how we will remind ourselves to do the thing that is expected. In our organization, we use this phrase a lot. Silence is acceptance. And the way that works is if somebody had a really rough night, something at home, really tired, came into work, maybe a few minutes late, super flustered, setting up, can't think what to do on the art table and decides to cut out shapes of fish and put them at the table. Clearly something outside of what we would want. And the second staff comes in and they immediately see it. But they also sense that teacher A is frustrated, perhaps grumpy. Maybe that's not a person they really enjoy getting involved with. And so in that moment, they choose silence. And what we've helped them to understand is that they are then saying that what is there is acceptable to them. If you say nothing, then you are agreeing to the status quo. In an ideal situation, the second teacher coming in would say, "Hey, I noticed you've put out some cutout art. I'm just wondering what your thinking is around that because, that isn't something that is usually acceptable. I just wonder if are you working on something in specific? Is this as a result of a conversation you've had with the children? Like, where are you coming at? Or can I help you get something else out on the table?" That's very high level team functioning. I think we can all agree. We wish that that kind of communication happened all the time. But having sort of things like silence is acceptance, if we bring that phrase to a curriculum meeting with our educators and say, "How did this happen?" And right away they will know, yep, we let ourselves down. Accountability then is not a stick to be used to bring people into compliance. Accountability is a tool to ensure excellence in our practice. Because that's what we're here to do, right? Excellence in our practice. The nature of our work, our childcare work, whether we're leaders or educators or wherever we intersect with this field, deserves some examination. When we can clearly articulate our philosophy and vision and values, and we take care to ensure that they show up in the busyness of the daily work in childcare, then we can live wholehearted lives. The children deserve educators to be fully invested in their development and creativity. So I hope this example shows you how it all links together, right? Each of these pieces, it's like Lego. You just keep building brick after brick after brick. I do think, though, that there's this list here is also all the other places that values and pedagogical choices must show up. It's a lot, and I recognize that it can maybe feel like a lot. And I also know if you do the foundational work around values and you embed pedagogical choices into your organization, then these will flow fairly easily. The book, another resource that we've used a lot in dealing with some of these issues is this book. It's called Illuminating Care by Carol Garbode Murray. She does a deep dive into nap time, toilet learning, and meal times. And it asks a lot of hard questions about what your real values are with children that come up. And she gives some really great examples, and I commend that book to you. Yeah, the book is amazing. Thanks, Haley. I agree. All right, so we're ticking on time here, but I do want to offer you the opportunity to have a conversation with each other. Oh, I'm trying to go backwards here. Here we go. To a quick breakout room. I don't actually know how many people are on this conversation. I'm prepared to let's have a little democratic moment here. Do you want to have this conversation all together, or do you want to go to breakout rooms? Together, together, together. Okay, okay.
I'm okay with anything too.
Okay. I'm seeing a lot of together. Okay. So then I'm going to trust you to participate in this conversation. So how is this vision and values conversation landing for you? What work lies ahead for you? what is something you could use some help with. And then either tonight here in this conversation or in an email to me after tonight, other topics that might be helpful to you. So I'm going to actually take the share screen off so we can get more people in on the Zoom. Oh.